Ariel Helwani getting set for UFC 118 with a very happy Dana White because he has come home. Dana, we've had a lot of unique press conferences, but look at this. John Adams chilling behind us. This is pretty special. I mean, look at where we are right here.
No, I agree. This is incredible to be in a historic building like this and to be in Boston and finally having a UFC event. It's a very good time for me.
Let's just put the spotlight on you for a second here. You know, this guy who was a bellhop at a local Boston hotel. I mean, you grew up on the mean streets of Southie, I believe it is. What does it feel like to be standing here in front of all these people, coming back home, president of the UFC?
It's cool. I don't look at it that way. You know, when I come back here, I still, a lot of my friends and people that I worked with all still work at the hotels. So, we hang out and talk about the old days. Last night, actually, there was a company called EJ Paving here in Wakefield, Mass. I used to pave roads, too. I did that for a little while with these guys, and we all got to dinner. The whole company came down and had dinner with me last night and hung out and talked about the old days. So it's good to be home.
And here's the big question. Are you staying at the same hotel which you worked at many moons ago?
No, I'm actually at the Four Seasons.
That's funny, because I'm at the Airport Hilton.
Yeah.
The UFC suggested that we stay at the Airport Hilton. We come to Boston. What's up with that?
Yeah. Our CFO booked everybody at the Hilton, the dumbest move in the history of the company.
Really?
Really. Yeah. They're at the Airport Hilton. Over at the airport, you have to drive through the tunnel in traffic to get over here into Boston to go to the event. Yeah.
Fired up over this.
Yeah. Not one of our better moves.
All right, well, let's talk about an interesting move. James Toney making his UFC debut. We were there, in UFC 108 when he came up to you and was stalking you and all this stuff. You finally made the move, and then a few months later you said, you know what, I don't know why I made this move. Well, have you sort of convinced yourself as to why James Toney in the UFC is a good idea?
Yeah, well, I didn't know. When we were sitting in my office that day, I'm sitting there with an overweight James Toney talking this, that, and everything else about what he knows. I didn't know how serious he was going to take this thing. Well, anybody who saw Toney back when he started chasing me around and sees Toney now, Toney's in great shape. He's a real guy. And the history, of people talking smack and of boxers saying this and that about this is the only guy that's actually stepped up, signed on the dotted line, and went out and seriously trained for this thing. So, what I'm expecting on Saturday night is not a boxing match, is not an MMA match, is a fight. There's going to be a fight on Saturday night with those two.
That said, you take the reputation of this sport very seriously. Is a part of you a little nervous that it just won't look good out there, that, Couture takes him down, finishes him in 30 seconds? Wouldn't that kind of bother you?
No. I built a great card around this fight just for that. Listen, and let's be honest and let's be realists here. What I expect... have you heard me at any point during this, my PR for this fight saying, let me tell you what, folks, tune in on Saturday night because you're going to see a war, an unbelievable... No, that's not what I said. What I think is going to happen is Couture's going to double leg him, put him against the fence, and smash him or submit him. But you got to give it to... Toney could clip him. Toney could go out there and could hit him with something and could catch him. Anything can happen in a fight. But in no way, shape, or form have I... James Toney picked a fight, and he got one.
You do millions of interviews, and a lot of people always ask you, who's going to win, this guy or this guy? Who do you want to win, this guy or this guy? You're always neutral. But for this fight, it doesn't sound like you're neutral. Why are you sort of picking Randy Couture?
Listen, James Toney is right now, I guess you could say he's a UFC fighter too. He's under contract. But, James Toney, I mean, let's be honest here. Let's be real about this. James Toney didn't work his way up through the smaller organizations and get into the UFC and beat some key guys and get it shot at Randy Couture, the legend in mixed martial arts. James Toney came out, called me a punk, this or that. I used to get knocked out in the streets of Boston all the time. This sport sucks. These guys could never hang. He picked a fight. And now he's got a fight, and we're going to have a fight on Saturday night. I got the phone call from Randy Couture. Randy Couture said, if this happens, I want this fight. So here we are today. This isn't really about the UFC and about, watching out for the sport. People know what they're getting on Saturday night. I've been straight up honest about the whole thing and how I feel about it, but I've built a great card around it. I mean, the first fight on pay-per-view is Nate Diaz and Marcus Davis. I mean, people are already telling me to write the check to give them fight of the night. You know what I mean? Then you got Kenny Florian and Gray Maynard. You got Paula Harris versus Nate Marquardt and Toney and Couture, which whatever you want to say about this fight, to be honest with you, I'm nervous and excited about it, okay? I have some personal investment in this thing. If I have to deal with James Toney for another 3 months, I'm going to kill myself. And then obviously Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn, and what I love about this fight is the controversy from the first one. You can tell Frankie Edgar's aggravated with this whole, it was a fluke thing, and BJ wants to come out and redeem himself again, so that should be an amazing fight.
You just ran through the whole card here. We could finish up the interview. But I know you got a lot on your plate. Marquardt Paul Harris has been moved to September 15th, replaced by Maya Miranda.
Are you kidding me? I'm glad I didn't say that today at the press conference. That would have been
the main event because of Alan Belcher getting injured. Come on, Dana. You're so excited to be here that you forgot.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. Dude, I'm doing so many fights I forget. I swear to God, today when I came in and I said, you know, Nate and Marcus Davis should have been here too, because I almost said something about the Paula Harris. Later, I almost said, oh, I should have mentioned Paula Harris, and thank God I didn't.
All right, final question on James Toney. He has said that if he wins or loses on Saturday night, he's going after the Klitschko brothers or David Haye in boxing. If he does win, though, will you try to convince him to stay in the UFC and fight another big contender at heavyweight? I
don't know. I mean, we'd have to see where it is. Listen, I got into this deal with James Toney knowing this guy's a boxer and that's what he does. And I think, too, to be honest with you, when this whole thing started and James Toney came out, people are whatever. I think the MMA fans, you know, kind of like Toney, too. You know, and when he leaves here and goes and boxes, you know, maybe a lot of these MMA fans are going to go follow him and watch him box.
The first time we saw Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn, slightly controversial in Abu Dhabi. Which fighter are you expecting to step up his game on Saturday night?
I think that, you know, Frankie Edgar's always consistent, man. That kid comes in, he's a million miles an hour, he goes after it. BJ Penn is, you know, you don't know which BJ is going to show up. The world beater that's been in phenomenal shape, jumping out of a swimming pool with no hands, you know, you don't know what guy you're going to get, but until he loses. After a loss, you know, you usually expect to see the best BJ Penn ever.
So in a way, this was probably a good thing for him, sort of reinvigorated him?
You know, how many times have we said that in 10 years? It's always, you know, it takes something to get the fire lit under BJ again, and I believe this did.
You said that if Gray Maynard wins on Saturday night, he gets a shot at the title. If Kenny Florian wins, though, does he also get a shot? Because he just lost his second title shot just a year ago at UFC 101.
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing with Kenny Florian. I say this all the time. Kenny Florian, when he comes out on Saturday night and fights, he's going to come out like an animal, man. He comes out and goes after you like he's trying to finish you. When he's in a title fight, he always does some weird runs around or pushes you against the fence or doesn't fight like he normally fights. So hopefully he wins again and gets a title shot again. Kenny Florian's going to come out and fight like Kenny Florian.
Okay, one more question about this card before I just get to a couple of other news and notes. Gabe Rudiger is making his return to the UFC, and a lot of guys who leave the Ultimate Fighter, especially the way he did, don't usually get called back. Why'd you give him another shot?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, we'll have to ask Joe Silva that one. That's a Joe Silva call.
He looked good on the, you know, the sort of minor league circuit, so to speak. Maybe he just wanted him to give him another shot, but it wasn't something that you decided, right?
No, that was Joe Silva. Joe Silva brought him back and put him in this fight with Lozon.
Okay, just a few other things.
And that fight's going to be on Spike. That's going to be one of the prelims on Spike TV.
Both guys have a history on Spike TV because they were on The Ultimate Fighter. You announced, and of course the Ontario government announced, MMA finally going to be legal in Ontario. When are you going to make your debut in Toronto? And is there a chance GSP Koscheck gets moved to Toronto?
No.
But no to GSP Koscheck.
Yeah, no, but I'm pumped. I'm excited for this fight. You know, I've wanted Toronto as long and as bad as I've wanted Boston. I think that when we do the event there, it'll be the biggest mixed martial arts event in North America in history. I think it'll be a long time before that record's broken. And
any chance you do it at the Rogers Center, which is home of the Blue Jays?
I don't know yet. We got to figure that stuff out.
Do you know when you will make your debut? Sort of.
I have no idea.
No.
Nope.
I haven't heard you comment on the Shane Carwin story yet. Is there anything you could say about it?
Yeah, well, what happened is this is one of the. First of all, I don't know enough about it to really get into it in depth, but I know he came up on like a Balco type list, on a list of guys who did it. But this guy's fought in the UFC now for a long time under regulation and has never tested positive for anything. So while it's you know not a good time for Shane and his family, I'm sure, but you know, we'll see how this whole thing plays out.
All right, Dana, a lot of 16-year-olds have sent me here to ask this question. I don't really care about it at all, but they want to know. A couple of weeks ago, Arianny Celeste, UFC Octagon girl, tweeted a picture of the front of the Playboy offices. This led to a lot of people thinking that she might be the next UFC employee to grace the cover of Playboy, Rochelle Leah being the first one. Any news to report on that front?
Yeah, it's true. She'll be the November cover of Playboy.
Has this
actually just shot it? Probably the day that she tweeted that, she shot it, and all the pictures are coming back right now. And from what I'm hearing, it was a great shoot, and she'll be the cover in November.
The WWE for a long time had a relationship with Playboy, and those magazines, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but some of the most highest selling ones in Playboy's history. How good was that relationship for you the first time with Rochelle?
It was good. Rochelle did really well, and Rochelle's cover was at a time when the UFC wasn't as big as it is now. So as it keeps growing, and obviously Arianny, I would honestly have to say Arianny is probably one of the most beloved and biggest ring card girls we've ever had. So I'm sure it's going to do very well.
It goes down this Saturday night live on pay-per-view, the UFC debut at the Boston TD Garden. Dana White comes home. Also, James Toney, Randy Couture, Frankie Edgar, BJ Penn for the lightweight title. Thank you so much for the time, and welcome home, Dana.
Thank you, brother.